Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest battle you will ever fight will not be with the world outside. It will be with the world inside your own head. Every day your mind tries to convince you to play small, to settle, to surrender to fear and doubt. But what if I told you the difference between a life of hesitation and a life of unstoppable growth is not luck, not talent, not even timing. It's learning to control the one thing that controls everything else, your mind. Stay with me, because once you master this, nothing in your life will ever look the same again. And when you decide to take control of your mind, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming the creator of your destiny. Most people think their emotions are automatic, that they have no choice but to feel what comes up in the moment. They believe stress just happens to them. They believe anger just takes over. They believe anxiety is simply who they are. But that is only true when you haven't built the muscle of awareness and choice. The moment you realize your mind is not the dictator but the tool, you begin to step into a new level of freedom. And think about how powerful this is. If you are able to shift your mental state at will, then there's nothing you cannot face. Imagine being in a situation where everything around you is falling apart. Business, relationships, health. And while others panic, you stay calm, centered, and resourceful. Not because the situation is easier for you, but because you refuse to let your mind define it in a way that makes you weak. Instead, you direct your focus, you shape your meaning, you use your body, and you step into the best of yourself, even in the worst of times. That is not luck. That is training. That is the product of conditioning your mind to obey you instead of the other way around. And the question then becomes, how do you strengthen this ability? Every single day, it starts with making a conscious decision to stop being reactive. Life throws thousands of triggers at you daily. An email that upsets you, a conversation that makes you defensive, a bill you weren't expecting. Most people don't even notice the moment when their state shifts. They just ride the wave of whatever emotion shows up. But when you start practicing control, you interrupt that pattern. You catch yourself. You say, hold on, do I want to feel this way? Do I want to give this situation that kind of power over me? And in that split second, you reclaim authority. And you must also feed your mind with the right fuel. What you consume mentally is just as important as what you consume physically. If you feed your body junk every day, your body will break down. If you feed your mind negativity, gossip, fear, and doubt, your mind will break down too. But if you flood it with empowering books, conversations that stretch you, ideas that challenge you, and practices that center you, you are programming it for strength. Every podcast, every video, every book, every conversation is a seed. The question is, are you planting weeds or are you planting fruit? And let's be clear, you cannot avoid difficulty in life. The challenges will come no matter how strong you are. But controlling your mind doesn't mean eliminating problems. It means changing your relationship with them. Problems are not punishments. They are invitations. They are signals that you are alive and that you are growing. The only people without problems are in the cemetery. If you are breathing, you will face difficulties. But here's the difference. When your mind is under your control, a problem no longer equals suffering. A problem equals growth. A problem equals creativity. A problem equals the chance to become more. And when you condition yourself to see it this way, you develop resilience. And resilience is not about never falling. It's about rising quickly when you do. Most people stay down because their mind convinces them that falling is failing. But when you're in charge of your thoughts, you remind yourself that falling is learning, that falling is strengthening, that falling is proof you were in the arena, not sitting on the sidelines watching life pass by. And now let's talk about standards, because the mind responds to the standards you set. If you accept living in fear, you will live in fear. If you tolerate procrastination, you will procrastinate. If you allow self-doubt to dictate your decisions, you will never move beyond average. But when you raise your standards and say, this is no longer acceptable in my life, your mind must adapt. It's like a thermostat. If you set the thermostat in your house at 70 degrees and the temperature drops, the system kicks on to bring it back up. The same is true with your identity. If your standard is strength, courage, and growth, then the moment your mind slips into fear, weakness, or excuses, you will notice, you will correct, you will demand alignment. And this is why rituals are critical. What you do consistently is what conditions you. If you start your day checking your phone, scrolling through fear-driven news or comparison-driven social media, you are programming your mind for distraction and weakness before you even step into the world. But if you start your day with movement, with gratitude, with powerful questions like, what am I capable of today? Or what can I give today? You are programming your mind for strength. Rituals are not about discipline for the sake of discipline. They are about creating a foundation so solid that when life shakes you, you don't crumble. And another piece of control comes from mastering the questions you ask. Your brain is a question-answering machine. Whatever question you feed it, it will find an answer. If you ask, why does this always happen to me? Your mind will deliver a dozen reasons why you are cursed, unlucky, or unworthy. But if you ask, what can I learn here? Or how can I turn this around? Your mind will go to work finding solutions. It's not that one question is truer than the other. It's that one empowers you, the other enslaves you. You are the one who decides which question to give your focus. And let's not forget the role of visualization. The mind cannot tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something real. When you continually rehearse worst-case scenarios in your head, you are teaching your nervous system to expect failure. But when you vividly imagine yourself succeeding, overcoming, thriving, your brain wires itself to believe that outcome. Athletes use this before games. Leaders use this before speeches. Anyone who wants to achieve more must use this daily. See it, feel it, believe it, and your mind will align your actions to make it real. And there is also the matter of environment. You cannot consistently control your mind if you live in an environment that constantly pulls you into weakness. The people around you influence your thoughts more than you realize. Spend time with complainers, and you'll think more complaints. Spend time with dreamers, and you'll think more dreams. Your environment is either reinforcing your control or sabotaging it. That doesn't mean you avoid every negative person, but it does mean you become intentional about who and what has access to your mind. Guard it like the most valuable asset you own, because it is. And finally, you must recognize that controlling your mind is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. Just like brushing your teeth doesn't last for life, controlling your mind requires consistent effort. But the payoff is extraordinary. Imagine waking up each day knowing that no matter what comes, you will not be ruled by fear. Imagine walking into opportunities without hesitation because you've trained your mind to see possibilities, not problems. Imagine facing setbacks with certainty that you will rise stronger because your thoughts are aligned with resilience. And this level of control is available to anyone, but most people won't claim it. They'll continue letting their minds bully them into smallness, into hesitation, into self-sabotage. But not you, because you've seen the truth that your mind is not your master, it is your servant. And every day you strengthen that truth, you step into a life most people only dream about. And when you begin to truly live with the understanding that your mind is a servant, not a master, you realize that freedom doesn't come from the absence of challenges, but from the power to decide how you respond to them. Most people spend their lives waiting for the outside world to change before they allow themselves to feel peace, joy, or confidence. They say, once I get that promotion, I'll feel secure. Once I find that relationship, I'll feel loved. Once I make that money, I'll feel successful. But if your emotions are chained to circumstances, then you are always a prisoner because circumstances are constantly changing. The only real freedom comes when you can generate those emotions independent of what's happening around you. That's what true control of the mind looks like. The ability to live in strength even when life doesn't look the way you want it to. And think about the greatest moments in your life. They weren't the times when everything was perfect. They were the times when you rose above imperfection. They were the moments when you refused to be defined by pain, when you chose to act in courage instead of fear, when you created meaning out of struggle. Those moments reveal who you are, because in those moments your mind had to obey your decision instead of its own programming. And every time you've done that in the past, you've built proof that you can do it again no matter what comes next. And one of the most important things you can do is shift from living in reaction to living in intention. Reaction says, this is happening, therefore I must feel this way. Intention says, this is happening, but I choose to create this meaning and take this action. That one shift changes everything. Because once you stop being reactive, you stop being at the mercy of your triggers. Someone criticizes you, and instead of spiraling into defensiveness, you decide to see it as feedback. You face a setback, and instead of interpreting it as failure, you see it as an opportunity to get stronger. You feel fear, and instead of letting it paralyze you, you use it as a signal that you're on the edge of growth. That's the difference between a life that shrinks and a life that expands. And the mind will always present you with the easy way out. It will whisper excuses. It will convince you that you don't need to push harder, that you don't need to risk rejection, that you don't need to try again. But understand this, the mind's job is not growth, it's survival. And if you live only for survival, you will never experience what it feels like to truly live. You weren't born just to get by. You were born to create, to contribute, to expand, to experience the fullness of life. And to access that, you must step beyond the limits your mind tries to place on you. And it's about reclaiming your power moment by moment. When the alarm goes off in the morning and your mind says, stay in bed, you're tired, you take control by saying, no, I'm in charge. I get up, I move, I create momentum. When you're about to have a difficult conversation and your mind says, avoid it, it will be uncomfortable, you take control by saying, no, I'll step in, I'll speak truth, I'll grow from this. When you're faced with an opportunity and your mind says, what if you fail? You take control by saying, what if I succeed? What if this is the moment everything changes? Each time you override the default, you strengthen the muscle of control, and the mind follows patterns, and once a pattern is established, it becomes automatic. That's why so many people feel stuck. They've built patterns of hesitation, patterns of fear, patterns of self-sabotage. But here's the empowering truth. You can interrupt any pattern in a single moment. The moment you change your focus, your language, your physiology, the pattern breaks. And when you replace that old pattern with a new one and you do it consistently, your mind begins to serve the new pattern automatically. That's how you go from someone who struggles with fear to someone who thrives on courage. From someone who procrastinates to someone who takes immediate action. From someone who doubts to someone who believes. And you also must understand that energy is everything. When your energy is low, your mind will pull you into doubt and negativity. But when your energy is high, it becomes so much easier to direct your thoughts. This is why movement, nutrition, rest, and breathing are not just physical practices. They are mental practices. A tired body produces a tired mind. An energized body produces a mind that is sharp, focused, and ready to follow your lead. If you want to control your mind, you must first take responsibility for the energy you bring into each day. And then there's the power of identity. Your mind will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. If you tell yourself, I'm not disciplined, your mind will look for every reason to prove it true. If you tell yourself, I'm a leader, I'm resilient, I'm resourceful, your mind will rise to meet that standard. Controlling your mind isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about upgrading the identity that generates those thoughts. And the fastest way to shift your identity is through consistent action. Every time you act in alignment with the person you want to become, you carve that identity deeper into your mind. And this is also why gratitude is such a powerful practice. Gratitude rewires the mind to focus on abundance instead of lack, on possibility instead of limitation. When you live in gratitude, you take control of your focus. Instead of constantly scanning for what's missing, you see what's already present. Instead of obsessing over what you can't control, you celebrate what you can. And that state of gratitude puts you in the best position to create more of what you want. And don't underestimate the importance of momentum. Once you've built the habit of controlling your mind in the small moments, it becomes much easier to do it in the big moments. If you practice catching yourself when you start to complain, when you start to procrastinate, when you start to worry about things that don't matter, you build the reflex of control. Then, when life hits you with something major, you already have the muscle. You don't crumble. You don't collapse. You rise because you've been rising all along in the little battles. And the truth is, you will never eliminate fear, doubt, or negativity completely. They will always show up because that's what the mind does. But controlling your mind doesn't mean eliminating them. It means refusing to be ruled by them. It means noticing them, acknowledging them, and then moving forward anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's mastery over it. Confidence is not the absence of doubt, it's the refusal to let doubt stop you. Strength is not the absence of weakness, it's the decision to act in spite of it. And every single day you have a choice. Do you want to be driven by the default programming of your mind? Or do you want to take control and design the life you were meant to live? Do you want to stay stuck in patterns of hesitation and fear? Or do you want to step into patterns of action and courage? Do you want to be defined by circumstances, or do you want to be defined by your response to them? That choice is yours and yours alone. And every moment you choose control, you are building a life on your terms, and your mind will try to convince you that you are not ready, that you need more time, more preparation, more certainty. But you don't need more time, you need a decision. You don't need more preparation, you need action. You don't need certainty. You need faith in your ability to figure it out as you go. When you control your mind, you stop waiting for everything to be perfect, and you start creating progress in the middle of imperfection. That's when life starts to open up for you in ways you never imagined. And so practice it now. Notice your thoughts. Interrupt the ones that disempower you. Replace them with ones that drive you forward. Use your body, your focus, your language to shift your state. Build rituals that program you for strength. Surround yourself with people who elevate you. Take action that aligns with who you want to become. And repeat again and again until control of your mind is not something you have to think about. It's simply who you are. And when it becomes who you are, something incredible happens. You stop fighting against yourself. You stop waking up every morning feeling like you're dragging a heavy weight of doubt, fear, and hesitation. Instead, you wake up with clarity. You wake up with conviction. You wake up knowing that no matter what happens, you've trained your mind to find a way through. That is the kind of certainty that transforms not only your results, but the way you experience life itself. And it's no longer about whether life is easy or hard. It's no longer about whether people approve of you or reject you. It's no longer about whether things go perfectly or fall apart, because you've built the muscle of control. And that muscle gives you a foundation that nothing outside of you can shake. Most people don't understand that freedom doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from developing the strength to face them without losing yourself. And that strength comes from the mind. And when you control your mind, you are no longer a slave to the emotions that used to hold you hostage. Stress doesn't consume you, it sharpens you. Fear doesn't stop you, it fuels you. Failure doesn't define you, it refines you. Every emotion becomes a tool rather than a trap. Anger becomes energy to create change. Sadness becomes a signal to realign with your values. Joy becomes an amplifier of momentum. The emotions don't disappear, but instead of being controlled by them, you use them. And that's the real breakthrough. Most people try to avoid negative emotions at all costs, thinking that the absence of pain is the key to happiness. But the truth is, happiness doesn't come from the absence of pain. It comes from the presence of meaning. It comes from knowing that no matter what emotion arises, you are bigger than it, that you can feel it fully and still decide who you are and how you will respond. That's what makes you unshakable. And this isn't about pretending. It's not about faking positivity or ignoring reality. It's about choosing to face reality in a way that empowers you rather than weakens you. When you face uncertainty, you don't deny that it's scary. You simply remind yourself that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of it. When you face rejection, you don't pretend it doesn't hurt. You simply refuse to make it mean that you're unworthy. When you face failure, you don't ignore the setback. You simply decide it's a stepping stone, not a dead end. That's how you control the narrative inside your head, and that's how you control your life. And it's about stepping into the role of author instead of reader. Most people are just reading the story their mind writes for them, day after day. But when you take control, you pick up the pen, you write the story, you decide the plot twist. You choose whether today is the chapter of defeat or the chapter of resilience. And when you live that way consistently, your entire life becomes a masterpiece written by your own hand. And this is also where contribution becomes vital. When you control your mind, you stop being consumed only with your own survival, and you start asking, how can I give? How can I serve? How can I impact? Because once your own inner world is aligned, you naturally expand outward. You realize that life is not just about controlling your own state. It's about elevating others through the state you've created. And when you do that, your influence multiplies. People feel it. They're drawn to it because strength of mind is magnetic. But remember, it takes practice. This is not something you master once and then forget about. Just like building physical strength, it requires repetition. And the repetition comes in those everyday moments. When the traffic jam starts to trigger frustration, do you give in or do you redirect your focus? When a colleague criticizes you, do you let it spiral into resentment or do you turn it into growth? When your plans fall apart, do you collapse into excuses or do you rise into resourcefulness? Every one of those moments is a repetition. Every one of those moments builds the muscle. And over time, the compound effect of those small choices is extraordinary. A single push-up doesn't transform your body, but thousands of push-ups do. A single moment of control doesn't transform your life, but thousands of them do. The key is consistency. And consistency is born not out of willpower alone, but out of identity. When you decide, this is who I am someone who controls my mind, then consistency becomes automatic. Because your mind always seeks to remain consistent with who you believe you are. And you must also be willing to push into environments that test you. If you stay in comfort, your mind never has to grow. If you never put yourself in situations that demand more of you, your mind will stay lazy. But when you step into arenas that stretch you, new projects, new challenges, new risks, you force your mind to adapt. You train it under pressure. And that's when real strength is built. Pressure is not your enemy. It is your ally. It reveals the cracks in your conditioning so you can reinforce them. It shows you where you still give your power away so you can reclaim it. And when you've trained your mind this way, life begins to look different. What used to terrify you now excites you. What used to overwhelm you now energizes you. What used to stop you now propels you forward. You become the kind of person who others look at and wonder, how do they stay so calm under pressure? How do they stay so focused in chaos? How do they keep moving forward when everything is against them? The answer is simple. You've trained your mind to obey you. And this doesn't mean you don't feel doubt. It doesn't mean you don't experience fear. It means you've learned to feel them fully without being ruled by them. It means you've built a relationship with your mind where it no longer dictates your limits, but instead magnifies your possibilities. And when you live this way, you stop holding back. You stop waiting. You stop second guessing. You start living with urgency, with passion, with presence, because you know that every moment you're in control of your mind is a moment you're truly alive. And let's not forget the ripple effect. When you control your mind, you give others permission to do the same. Your children watch you and learn that they don't have to be prisoners of fear. Your partner feels the strength of your presence and rises with you. Your team sees your composure and finds their own. The way you show up mentally becomes a model for others. And in that way, you multiply your impact far beyond yourself. And the reality is, life will never stop testing you. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be setbacks. There will always be moments where your mind tries to pull you back into smallness, but that's not a curse, that's a gift, because every test is a chance to practice. Every test is a chance to strengthen. Every test is a chance to prove to yourself that you are in charge. And the more you practice, the less control fear, doubt, and weakness have over you. And so don't shy away from the challenges. Don't wish for an easier path. Instead, wish for the strength to face whatever path you're given. Because strength of mind is the foundation for everything. With it, you can take risks, you can create breakthroughs, you can build relationships, you can overcome failures, you can design a life that inspires you. Without it, even the best opportunities slip through your fingers. The difference is not the world outside of you, it's the world inside of you. And the world inside of you is yours to command. Your mind can either be a cage or it can be the key. It can either be the greatest enemy or the greatest ally. It can either keep you trapped in cycles of fear and hesitation or propel you into levels of growth you never thought possible. The decision of which one it becomes is not made once in your life. It is made every day in every moment with every choice. And the more times you choose control, the more unshakable, unstoppable, and limitless you become.